Good morning, students. As you all know that in the last online class we have started the chapter number 15, biodiversity and conservation. Okay, so you are already aware of this term biodiversity and you have already studied about the need of conservations. Even though we have already studied about biodiversity, what is biodiversity and what is conservation, still we are studying this chapter in class 12 and in the unit ecology. So there must be some requirement, there must be some essentiality for why this chapter is needed. So let me tell you, there is a way of reading this chapter in class 12, because in class 12, instead of going through the concepts, the more important is the facts which are related to this chapter. Okay, so to know the factors and to memorize the facts, okay, of this chapter, you need to go through the NCERT line by line. I am repeating again, when you are reading this chapter, the most important thing is to go through NCERT line by line. Okay, so for that I am requesting all the students to have their NCERT beside them when they are going through this chapter, because they need to underline and memorize it. Okay, so first is biodiversity. What is biodiversity? Biodiversity is the immense diversity, variety, heterogeneity on the species which are found on the earth. Species in the sense I'm talking about the plant species, animal species, microorganism, any kind of living being. Okay, so any kind of living being that are present on the earth, the immense variety which we can see in them is known as biodiversity. Now let me tell you one thing. The term biodiversity was coined by Walter G. Rosen. Okay, so there was this scientist, okay, there was this scientist Walter G. Rosen, who coined the term biodiversity, but the term biodiversity was popularized by the sociobiologist Edward Wilson. Okay, so Edward Wilson was the man because of whom people came to know about the term biodiversity, or it became popularized among the people and they started using the term biodiversity when they tried to refer different forms of living beings. Okay, now next is, we have already done, that is the different levels of biodiversity. So I told you that the first level of biodiversity is genetic biodiversity. So when there is a slight change in the gene, okay, when there is a slight change in the gene of any organism, and because of which there is different varieties in a single species, that refers to genetic biodiversity. I told you that because of this genetic biodiversity, we can see around 50,000 of strains of rice and 1,000 varieties of mango in India. Okay, we can find around 50,000 of genetically different rice. Please underline this because it's important. And 1,000 varieties of mango, because these facts, these numbers are important from the point of view of MCQ. Next is, there is a medicinal plant known as Rauwolfia vomitoria. Now Rauwolfia vomitoria is important for curing blood pressure. Okay, it is used to treat blood pressure, but all the species of Rauwolfia vomitoria do not have medicinal values. Only those with the deposition of chemical rhizopine in them have this medicinal value. Okay, so the genetic diversity here is important. So the species of Rauwolfia vomitoria, the variety which contains this rhizopinate, only it has a medicinal value. Okay, so here the mutated, or you can say the changed gene which has more rhizopine is giving it more value. Next we have is species diversity. So in an area where there is a different number of species, plant, animals, or whatever, okay, so diversity in the species of an area is known as species diversity. Now I told you in the class that when we are studying about species diversity, two things are important which we should keep in mind. First is the species richness and second is the species evenness. Okay, so in an area, the number of organisms which we are finding there, the diversity in the number of species is the richness, and among them the total number of individuals in species, if it is evenly distributed, let's say for example in a area, in a piece of land, if I find 10 number of coconut plants, 10 number of mango plants, or 8 number of guava plant, so here I will say the species are evenly spread. Rather, if in an area, if I find 10 coconut plants but only 1 mango plant and no guava plant, so the species evenness is less over there. And when I'm talking about the species richness, it is the variety. Okay, so if I say that in the land A, I find coconut plant, mango plant, guava plant only, but in the land B, I find jackfruit plant and other plants, apple plant, okay, rice plants, rose plant, other plants also as well, so that area will be much more richer. So when we are talking about species diversity, we should keep in mind regarding the richness and the evenness. On the basis of this, we know that we have two ghats, okay, which are present in the Deccan Plateau, the Western Ghat and the Eastern Ghat. Both are highly rich in diversity, but the Western Ghat has a greater amphibian species diversity. It is richer in amphibian species diversity, and because of which Western Ghat is much more diverse than the Eastern Ghat. Okay. Next we have ecological diversity. Ecological diversity refers to the different diversity in the ecosystems. Okay. So if we see that on the earth we will find temperate zone, tropical zone, polar zones. Okay. So the near the equator where the sunlight is more, okay, near the equator, the areas where the sunlight is received more by those countries, there you will find varied kind of ecosystems. Okay, the more you move towards the polar regions, the extremities are increasing, because of which the variations in the ecosystem also becomes less. Okay, so India, which is near about in the equator area, okay, because of that it has deserts, rainforests, mangroves, coral reefs, wetlands, estuaries, everything. So there is a huge number of variety of ecosystems in India, okay, which you will not find in countries like Norway, which are towards the pole. Okay, so ecological diversity is the diversity, okay, or variety in the ecosystem. Now next we need to study about how many species are there on earth and how many in India. So for that again you need to memorize some facts again. As you can see, according to IUCN 2004, the total number of plant and animal species described so far is slightly more than 1.5 million. So you need to memorize this fact. Okay. So according to IUCN 2004, they said that the total number of plant and animal species on earth is slightly more than 1.5 million. But again, there were some extreme estimates, okay, given by some scientists, random scientists. They said no, the range is 20 to 50 million. Okay, the range is 20 to 50 million. But finally there was again one scientist by the name Robert May who says that no, global species diversity is about 7 million. So from here you can see there are three estimates. So you will have to keep in mind, if they are asking about IUCN, you will have to say that no, the estimate is slightly more than 1.5 million. According to some variant, or you can say various random scientists, it was 20 to 50 million. But Robert May said that it is about 7 million. So you will have to see about whom the question has been asked, and you will have to answer in that way. Next we have is, out of total species recorded, more than 70% are only animals. Okay, so out of total species recorded on earth, okay, more than 70% are animals, while a little more than 22% are plants, which includes bryophytes, gymnosperm, angiosperm, algae, fungus and all. So you can see here fungus has been included in plants over here. Though we know that taxonomically fungus is a different group, but here it has been included in plants for biodiversity. Okay, and also among this 20, again, now my first question is, which I have already discussed in the class, that this number 70% of animal and only 22% of plants, there is a huge variation. Why? Because animals can locomote. Okay, so they have more adaptation, that's why the number is more. Similarly, in total animals, 70% are insects. Okay, so out of 70% of the animals, in that 70% are insects. The total animals, 70% are insects. So if I say that out of 10 animals, 7 will be insects. Why? Because insects have a chitinous exoskeleton which make them more adaptable, and that's why they are found in all places. Okay, the last fact which you should know is the total number of fungus. Okay, the total number of fungus which are found on the earth is equivalent to the total number of fish, mammal, reptiles and amphibians that are found on earth. Okay, so here you can see, you can underline this, that the total number of fungi species in the world is more than the combined total of the species of fish, amphibians, reptiles and mammals. Okay, you will have to exclude birds. So fish, mammal, reptile and amphibian, they total altogether make the total number of fungus. Next we have these pie charts. I told you these are very important because in exam they will give you this kind of pie charts and they will ask you that what is that. They will level it and they will ask you the question. In invertebrates you can see the highest number is insects, quite obvious. Then we have the total other animals which includes poriferans, cnidarians and all. Then we have mollusk and crustacean. In vertebrates the highest number is of fish. Then we have birds, mammals, reptiles and amphibians. In plants the highest number is fungus. Then we have angiosperm. Then we have algae, moss, ferns and lichens. Okay, moving on to next datas globally, which you can see here. Globally the total recorded, okay, so globally the total recorded global species diversity is 8.1%. okay, out of which 2.4% is found in India itself. Okay, so you can see here that India is highly diverse. Though India is highly diverse, but still if I see globally, there are total 12 mega diversity countries. Okay, and out of these 12 mega diversity countries, the first position belongs to Brazil. I'm repeating again, out of these 12 mega diversity countries, the first position belongs to Brazil and India has bagged the 8th position. Okay, India, though with 2.4% of world's species diversity, it has bagged the 8th position. Okay, now out of this 2.4% of the global diversity, in India plant species are around 45,000 and animal species are around 90,000. okay, so out of this 2.4, 45,000 are plant species and just the double is 90,000 species is animal. But according to scientist Robert May, again scientist Robert May said that whatever has been discovered yet, that is this 8.1% is only the 22% of the total global species which is found on earth. Okay, so according to his proportions, it is estimated that approximately more than 1 lakh species of plant and 3 lakh species of animals are yet to be discovered in India itself. Okay, next we will talk about the patterns of diversity. I told you that on earth we will find near the equator the tropical regions, which are the countries which are present in this tropical region are at the markings of 23.5 degree to north and 23.5 degree to south. Then we have the temperate regions and then we have the poles. So according to the scientists and taxonomists and sociobiologists, it has been found that the more you move from equator towards the pole, the more you move from equator towards the south pole or north pole, the more you move towards the extremities. Okay, the diversity becomes less. Okay, so if you increase the extremity, if you increase the distance from the equator, the biodiversity will decrease eventually. And if you increase the altitude, okay, if you increase the altitude also, the biodiversity will decrease. So latitude and altitude both are inversely proportional to the biodiversity. Now if we check the facts which you need to memorize, Colombia, which is present near the equator, it has around 1400 species of birds. Similarly, India, which is also present near the equator, it has 1200 species of birds. But if you see New York and Greenland, so New York, which we are moving towards 41 degree towards North Pole, it has 105 species, and Greenland 71 degree towards North Pole, it has 56 species only. Okay, so the more we are moving towards the pole, the species is decreasing. Similarly, Ecuador, okay, it has 10 times more species of vascular plants than USA. Next fact is Amazonian rainforest. Amazonian rainforest, which is found in South America, which is also known as the lungs of Earth, it produces 20% of the total oxygen produced by the plants on Earth. Okay, and it is very rich, and you need to memorize this fact. It has 40,000 species of plants, 3,000 species of fish, 1,300 species of birds, 427 species of amphibians, also 427 species of mammals, slightly more than that, 378 species of reptiles, and 1,25,000 species of invertebrates. So these are the facts which are there in your NCERT. In this paragraph, I have just written them here so that you can understand it properly, and you need to memorize this. Okay, now next we have is why diversity is rich in tropical area. Okay, why the diversity is rich in tropical area? So there is a reason. Okay, as you can see that tropical area is present in the equator. Okay, so you can find the solar energy is more received over here, and we know that solar energy is important for the survival of plants as well as animals. So the more solar energy is received, the more species diversity we will find. Okay, next is in the tropical areas, the environment, the weather condition, the climatic conditions are quite constant and predictable. Okay, so they are less seasonal. You will not find huge changes over there. You will not find huge fluctuations in the season. So they are constant and predictable. So the species diversity is rich over there, and there is less variations in them, and because of which the productivity is high. Next is speciation. Okay, speciation is evolution of species with time. Okay, the changes which are occurring in a species for better advancement, for better adaptability, that can happen only when there is less fluctuation. As I have discussed already, since in the tropical area the climatic regions are constant, the climatic conditions are constant and predictable, there are less fluctuations. There is no melting of the glaciers, no melting of the cold ice caps and all. So the climatic weather conditions are constant. There is more solar energy, so the species are getting more time. They are getting more time to do the evolution and get change for better results. Next is, what is the importance of species diversity? Okay, why species diversity is important? Species diversity is important. Why? Because you have already studied about food chain and food web. You know sustainable development. You know that all the species on the earth, whether it's a plant species or animal species, they're interdependent and they maintain ecological balance. The food chain, food web is important. So to maintain that, all the species which are present on the earth should have a constant number. Okay, there should be less variation, there should be stability in them. So higher the species diversity, higher will be stability. So in a area if the species number is higher, the productivity will be higher. The productivity, there will be stable productivity. Okay, there will be less variation. Okay, species diversity of a place is considered better when it is resistant to man-made disturbance. Okay, so if a place has higher species diversity and they are not affected by the man-made disturbance, it will help to get more productivity. Okay, even if it is resistant to alien species, like if a species any exotic species is coming from outside and it is not affecting the number of the local species, okay, then the ecological balance is not disturbed. Okay, so more or less what we need to understand is a species diversity is important for us, and it can, if it can be kept untouched, unchanged, if it is stable, if it is not fluctuated, then only it can be more helpful and the productivity will be high. Okay, so with this I finish my today's class over here. I hope you have understood, and if you have any problems we will discuss in the next class. Thank you.